Happy Saturday, everybody. We're here on day 6. It's me back with all of you, Dr. Melissa. We're on the 14-day challenge, and today I figured, it's Saturday. I don't know what it looks like where you all are, but here in the North Carolina mountains, it's a little gloomy, Gus. It's a total winter day. And I thought, what a great day to talk about the power of how to truly move from doing to being. Why it's essential, and how we can do it in just a few simple steps. So today, as we move through our life, this is interactive as always. It's our time to be together, to show up. So what's been happening so far, the first several days this week, it's really the power of showing up. How are we showing up each and every day in our lives? And are we showing up with intention, with purpose, to truly experience more of what we want, of what we desire, of what we deserve? Or are we just kind of reacting as life comes at us and not really taking any moment to be the master of our own destiny? So that's kind of what we've been packing day after day over this past week. And today on day 6, here on this Saturday, winter Saturday, let's talk about the importance of being. And we're going to talk about this in a couple of different ways and several different environments. So, hey, Lisa, my sweet friend, I miss you, darling. We're going to talk about it in several different ways. I will never forget, and Marty, you'll like this. This is a wrestling story. So years ago, back in my crazy professional wrestling days, it was a very full schedule. It seems like life has always been a full schedule. I think that was kind of the speed that I chose. And I wasn't being conscious, for how I was approaching my schedule. Maybe you can relate. Maybe you jump right in and you run like a crazy person with your hair on fire, and you come up for air maybe weeks later and go, my God, how did I get here, right? So anyway, this was a while ago. This was many moons ago. It was the first time I had this powerful realization of the importance of being versus doing. So I was at a phase in my life, again, it was back in my wrestling days, and I was constantly on the road, and I would equate it to like a rock star kind of life. You're on airplanes, you're on live television, it was going, and you never really got time to even understand what it felt like to just simply be. Darcy, it's good to see you, darling. Connie, good to see you. Happy Saturday, everyone. We're talking about switching from doing to being. And I'm sharing a story from back in the year 2000. So again, dating myself back in my wrestling days. And I've been going. And there was a situation that came up that I had to stay home one Monday night. Now, our television show was on a Monday night. And so everybody else was gone. Like all of my people, my normal routine, everybody was in it. They were doing it. And I was benched. I was sitting at home on the sidelines on my couch. And I didn't have to work for a couple of days. Now, let me frame this. Until this moment in time, I don't know if I ever, and I'm being very serious, I don't know if I ever just gave myself permission to sit on the couch. And in this situation, I had to. I was benched and I was sitting there, and I remember like it was yesterday feeling like I needed to pick up my phone, and I had to pick up something and do something. I had to clean, and it was like I was coming out of my skin over this idea of just being still, being on that couch, being in that moment. And while I didn't just change everything in that moment, it was a really profound aha of me looking and saying, I am not showing up to my life probably in the best way that I could. I'm afraid. In college, one of my friends called me a frayed nerve. Now, I wore that as a badge of honor. I don't think she meant it in a good way. And so I had been going, not knowing how to simply shift from doing into being. And so that was kind of one of those big ahas. And then as life progressed and I saged with wisdom and years, now we're here almost 20 years later, recognizing, and I remembered this today because, again, it's a gloomy gust day. And I said, we were supposed to go out of town and we didn't. And I'm like, what a perfect day to practice being present. And that's really what I'm speaking to. Our doing can take us over, and our doing can fuel us, and many of us are mission driven. We're big-hearted visionaries and healthpreneurs and entrepreneurs and business owners, and so we get caught up in our list of to-dos and do, and it will consume us if we allow it. It's always there, right? Exactly. Thank you for some love on that, no doubt. Dr. Dan, good to see you here, darling. Happy Saturday. And so, I'm that one. I was that frayed nerve, always doing, and I found my value. I found my value in my doing, in my results, in my deliverables. And it's an interesting time I've really watched, especially, being an entrepreneur, working with a lot of big visionary leaders out there and businesses that as a business, our objective is to grow. And it's a very interesting mind game that occurs when we constantly think we have to grow, 10x it, and everything has to be bigger and better. And not to say that it can't be, and it isn't fun to allow ourselves to move through that. And yet, by the very nature, that can presuppose that things aren't good in this moment. We can miss the beauty in the moment of the present while we're so future focused on what we have to do and achieve and create and deliver. And that is me. That is many of us. And so what I am suggesting today is how we begin to dip in to the present as we are actively honoring the joy in our heart and our soul to do. But in the doing, may we come from a place 80 hours a week to avoid a 40-hour week. Dan, you and I, you know it, my friend. And yet we're going to learn today about some simple things that will allow us to do while being. So bringing our joy of our present state into the activities, and there lies the balance. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of tips, so stay with me, and I have one more story because this was another game changer. So I'm sharing, we're looking at some moments of aha, right? And I want to hear from you guys. What was a big moment when you're like, oh my gosh, what is being? What does that even mean to be present? I'm going. I want to hear if you've had some big aha moments that really caused you to stop and recognize that it's okay to bring things back into a greater state of alignment, I call it align and allow, right? And so here's a simple thing that helps me to do that. First, I shared a story about 20 years ago, right? I was coming out of my skin. They called me the frayed nerve in college, and it was this thing of always going. And so step one is awareness. Now that seems really, really simple, right? And yet, how often do we overlook it? Because we're so up here busy doing the things that we need to do to achieve the outcomes that mean so much to us to achieve. And yet, the being occurs in the moment. So step one is just shifting our awareness back into the present. And this is something we actually teach over at Dr. Dan, a shout out to appear on for us here. There's this kind of 3x3 rule, which a great way just to bring your awareness back into the present is just to notice 3 things. You can call out 3 things that you see, 3 things that you hear, 3 things that you feel. Okay, it's just a real simple way just to come back into the here and now. Now, does that stop your to-do list? It doesn't at all. Yet the point today is really to remind each of us to align and allow, to honor our joy of the things that we're bringing our energy fully into doing through present moment awareness of how we are being. All right, I don't know if this is making sense. Let me know if this is making sense, you guys, because these are subtle concepts, yet they're so powerful. And it is the doing, the being, the coming from the place of present moment authentic intention and awareness that can fuel our doing. Now, a couple more things. This is a really important lesson, and I learned this 2 years ago from my son's teacher. So we moved up here from Atlanta to the mountains near Asheville, and we went from a public school system and a lot of a lot of benchmarks and accountability and grades and action items and right? Very linear. And we came up to an amazing, beautiful little town here, Brevard in the mountains, this awesome, great, very progressive school that focuses on developing the whole child. And so, yes, we're still doing schoolwork, yet they take a very different approach. And it's really this layering, right? So it's this layering, this aligning, this allowing of fundamental learning skills. And so, guys, we're talking about shifting from doing to being. And right now, Crystal, it's great to see you, darling. I'm sharing a story about how I had another shift of awareness when we moved up here 2 years ago. And so there was this day my son came home and he was really distressed. He had to get his math done and he didn't know what he was supposed to do, and he got really upset, and he was so much so that he was getting really emotional, and I amped up. Instead of just coming down and asking a few questions and helping him to breathe and just be present, I was not practicing what I was preaching on that day. I amplified the emotion. I'm like, oh my gosh, what do you mean? What's due? Because I went into pressure mode from public school and the doing mode. Like, we got to get things done. We've got grades. We've got accountability. We've got to get deadlines. That's what my brain shifted into unconsciously, automatically. Not my highest resource state, not my highest and best. So I immediately start messaging his teachers. Oh my gosh, what? We missed the rubric. What's he have to do? I didn't get an email, blah, 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 right? They're like, this is what I learned from his teacher. They wrote me back, and I'm like, what is he supposed to do? That was my question. And they're like, Melissa, nothing. Have him go outside and play. He needs to go be a kid. Thank you, Miss Becky. If you're watching this, drop the mic. You and Miss Kim are amazing. That was such a profound moment for me. And I have learned so much from my son's teachers and school about dismantling this idea, this pressure-filled linear, and this is kind of what happens with this concept of doing and 10xing and achievement. There's this concept that's been unconsciously just kind of rooted in, and we are as a society and as a human race right now, we're dismantling this. That's the good news. And that's why awareness is step number one. That's why we're talking about this today. Yet it is interesting when we are not in intentionality and awareness, how those unconscious programs, that language just kind of behind the scenes will take over and it'll run. And so this was case in point with things with my son's school. And what's been happening is it's been so fascinating for me to sit back and kind of sit on my hands and say, you know what? I am going to trust in the education process of him developing and learning. I'm going to relax from grades and linear and pressure. And then I've taken those same type of awarenesses and started to overlay those into how I'm approaching my own work. And we talked about this yesterday on Fun Friday. How can we infuse more fun, more intentionality into every day? So how do we go from doing into being? How do we allow our being to be enough? And to trust that when we don't make it about thinking that our self, our purpose, our meaning, our role in life is outside of us. See, that's the slippery slope. That's where we get amped up on the doingness, because we somehow think in all of the doing is going to help us be something, someone out there. And it's all an illusion, gang. We know this, because guess what? Here's the really cool thing, Dr. Dan. If someone requires instructions or directions, then it's not being. There you go. I like it. Thank you, Dr. Dan. I love when you always give us some knowledge, some good perspective. And that's it. We don't need instruction, right? Being is simple, yet we have been conditioned to think it's outside of us. And when I was telling you a moment ago, this is an old paradigm that's being dismantled. We have been led to believe for so long, culturally, as consumers, that we're broken, that we're not whole. And my whole Appear On tribe knows about this. We really all, we prescribe to the same mindset, that we're not broken, we're not whole. We are perfectly made, and we have everything right here. If we think about the Tao, it's the 10,000 things. Everything that's needed in life is already here. It's already within us. And it's when we are willing to take the moments to stop and be present. And it can be as simple as being present with our breath, simply noticing it. Again, we too often, and I'm making a generalization. I've done this myself. So many people I even work with at a high level, we forget the basics. We continue to think it's got to be bigger, something more complex. And yet true transformation, true alignment at the most complete level with ourself is through our breath. I love it. Years ago, actually, I went to a thing with Oprah, and Rob Bell spoke, and he told the story of breath in the most beautiful way. And he opened by talking about the birth of his child, his first child, and the death of his grandmother, two of his most important people in his life. And of course, the short version is he told the story about the baby's born, and what's the first thing the doctors are most concerned about? To make sure the baby's breathing. And then he tells that joyous story, and then he takes us to his grandmother's bedside, that he was there with her at her last breath. And so it is said in many religions and many spiritual traditions that breath, prana, is life. Life and breath are direct connection to spirituality. And so let me be real clear that breath is incredibly powerful in shifting us from the doing, and the pressure. We can feel by way of our breath if we're moving out of alignment, if we're moving into a higher state of anxiety or pressure, right? If we're moving out of our flow and our allowing. And so even through noticing our breath, it can help to shift us back into the present. And simply through, I'm going to give you a couple of ways to approach it. There's a basic instruction called the box breath, and it's just a real simple think, breathing in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. So in, over, down, out. You make a box. So if we're visual, we can think about it. It can be even simpler than that. You can just breathe in through your nose, and as you breathe in, just hear the word in your brain go in. And as you breathe out, just hear in your mind the word out. See, mindfulness and coming back into a state of being is simply about being intentional in the moment. It's letting go of all the other clatter and chatter and all of the other pressures and being fully Buffy. It is so good to see you here, beautiful. Welcome. Thank you. We're talking all about moving from doing into being. And we're talking about the power and the simplicity of being aware and using our breath as a simple tool to shift so much and to shift ourselves back into our state of wholeness, of remembering we are whole and perfect and divine. We are not broken. We are not scattered and shattered, and we are not missing our purpose and our calling. It does not lie outside of us. It is infused within us. And so today on this Saturday, I want to honor our time. I want to honor each of you. I intentionally, going back to where I started, so if you're coming in late and you have a minute and you can watch the playback, I talked about a story from 20 years ago, way back when I was in my wrestling days with professional wrestling, and I had my first moment of, oh my gosh, I was doing, and I had to stop, and I had to just sit on the couch and just be, and I felt like I was coming out of my skin. Well, it's taken 20 years of ongoing awareness and a lot of breathing and a lot of shifting. And I'll tell you, one of my favorite places to come into mindful, present moment mindfulness is when I'm at a red light. I use that time that's now just programmed in. So I just become quiet and I just will focus on the light. I'll turn off every sound, put the phone away, turn off the music, and just give my brain a moment. Because here's the beauty. Music, the sound of our voices, life is rich and vibrant and beautiful, not because of all this stuff, but because of the spaces between the notes, between the moments. It is the space between you and I that connects us in the wholeness and the oneness that we truly are. And so there is absolute beauty and magic and spiritual gifts in the moment, right here and now, in the silence, in the space, in giving yourself 60 seconds at a red light. And then guess what? We're charged up, we're aligned, we are aligned so we can allow our highest and greatest and best self to emerge through. And just threading what we've been talking about all week, it is with intentionality. We can choose in that moment, even if we were frustrated, even if we were striving and feeling pressured and missing deadlines and stressing out, and we came into a moment, noticed our breath, came back in, we aligned, we allowed, then we can choose with intentionality how to be who we're each meant to be. Bring your full beingness, your full awesomeness. I call it owning your awesome. Just own who you are. It doesn't have to be complex. We're not here to be anything other than who we truly are. And when you can begin to just shine and share openly without feeling like we need to impress anybody else, prove anything to anybody else, be you, and the magic unfolds. So listen, gang, I love doing these lives. This has been a fun day 6. We have, let's see, I'm doing it for 14 days. So we've got 8 more days to go. I'm doing it every night around 5. And so I'm posting it so you guys know ahead of time. Listen, if you are wondering how to dip into a greater state of being, if you're looking for the ways to truly access your own states of energy, of meaning, then feel free to reach out to me. You know, every day I work with high-level, mission-driven visionaries that are out there doing big things in the world, and we all together have to remember how to master our art of aligning and allowing. So if I can ever be of any support to you, just reach out to me. And today, thanks. Go enjoy this Saturday. Go breathe, go rest, go be. And it's just as simple as that. Mwah.